So what's going on, everyone? So in a world that we live in today, where vehicle prices are going higher and higher and higher, can the new 2018 Ford Expedition hold its own against the likes of the Chevy Tahoe, Cadillac Escalade, the GMC Denali, and the Lincoln Navigator? Let's find out. So completely redesigned and new for 2018 is the Ford Expedition. The specific one we're looking at here is the Platinum model. They carry it in several trim levels, including the XLT, the King Ranch, the Platinum, and the Limited. Now, Ford Expeditions have never been a low-cost vehicle. You've generally been able to get into a base model Expedition with cloth interior for the mid to high 40s. They topped out in the mid to high 60s and even up into the 70s depending on the trim that you got. The difference now is that the base price of one of these starts in the mid to low 50s and goes all the way up to about $80,000 depending on how you get it equipped. The question is, are these vehicles able to command, a $3,000 to $4,000 increase in price versus the previous trim model? Once you take a look at what you get in these new SUVs, I think you're going to be really surprised, simply because when comparing this to the previous edition Expedition, you are really seeing a huge departure from what Ford normally perceived as a luxury SUV into what they now perceive as an ultra-luxury SUV. First of all, when you look at the outside of this vehicle and you see how they've designed the truck, it's definitely taken on more of a luxury look, and it's kind of moved in the same direction as the Ford Explorer, primarily kind of copying that Range Rover look on the outside. It has very smooth lines. A lot of people kind of define it as a full-looking SUV, which means they don't have a lot of gaps in areas. It's not like the Ford truck you see there in the background where you see a lot of gaps between the grille. You see a large gap between the fender wells and the tire. It's basically a SUV that's designed to have that luxury full look to it. Now, this specific truck is equipped with just about every feature you can get on one of these, including the LED light package, which has the LED trim around the outside, full LED low and high beam headlights, as well as LED fog lights. There are very few SUVs on the market now that can claim to have gone full LED. Ford has been trying to do that with most of their vehicles, especially their higher-end trim vehicles, for about the last 3 years. The Super Duty that I have has all LED lighting. The new Expedition now has the availability of all LED lighting if you opt for it, or if you go with a higher-end package like the Platinum or the Limited. A lot of people can attest to the fact that this new LED lighting really stands out when you're driving at night, and it's one of the things that a lot of people look for in new vehicles. They really want to have that nice modern appearance of LED lights. That's why you see so many manufacturers now offering them as part of their vehicles. Once we move to the interior of this vehicle, you're going to see how it really looks like a high-end F-150 or Super Duty truck. They've really gone out of their way to make the interior of the truck mimic that of your King Ranch, your Platinum, your Limited versions of the F-150 and Super Duty trucks. And I don't think that's a bad thing. One of the nice things about owning a vehicle like this is that if, let's say, you're migrating from a Super Duty or an F-150 King Ranch or Platinum or Limited, when you get in this truck, it's going to feel very familiar. You're going to know where all your buttons are. You're going to know how to operate your camera, as well as your navigation, your seat controls. Everything's going to be very familiar, and there's something to be said about that uniformity across the lines. Basically, you don't want to get out of one vehicle, get into another vehicle, and feel like you have to relearn the entire system. This is going to give you that ability to hop out of an F-150 or a Super Duty, which now are up in the $65,000 to $80,000 price range or greater, and hop into an SUV and have the exact same experience you would have inside of your pickup. Now I got my good friend Eric here. What's going on, brother?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. So we wanted to do something a little different here. We wanted to take this 2018 Expedition and set it alongside a 2017 Expedition. So this 17 is a King Ranch package. It's the highest trim package that they have on the lot right now. And I wanted to show you just how much of a departure the 2018 is from the 2017. When you've looked and compared Expeditions to, say, Tahoes or GMC Denali's and and things like that in the past, you were comparing this against very good-looking, attractive vehicles. And the problem with that is it made justifying dropping the coin for one of these much more difficult. This King Ranch here probably carries about a $70,000 price tag. So when you left the Cadillac dealership or when you left the GMC dealership and you were looking at a Denali fully loaded, beautiful headlights, beautiful interior, freshly updated, and then you came to the Ford dealership and you looked at this Expedition, you were like, there's no way I'm buying an Expedition. Now, Ford's changed the game. They've really put a lot of time and effort into designing the new Expedition to give you the look and feel of luxury. So when you leave whatever dealership you're at to come here, you have that equal feel. You know that, okay, I might have looked at a really beautiful looking Denali over at the GMC dealership or a beautiful Tahoe. What am I comparing it to at Ford? And it kind of hits you with that, wow, I'm comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges now. It's not comparing two completely different looking vehicles with different features and kind of past outdated technology to something that was new. Now, Ford has tried to offer all sorts of different refresh upgrades for the 17 Expedition. They went to HID headlights as an option, LED lights. Pretty much every light on the Expedition became an LED light, I think about a year and a half ago, if you opted for a high enough package. Of course, they still have them with halogen options and things like that. I think on this, the only halogen option you have is the high beam right there. That being said, the package still hasn't changed in, what, 17 years? You know, this specific SUV has stayed looking like this for so long that if you went out and bought this and you pulled it in your driveway, your neighbors would have a hard time wondering if it was a pre-owned vehicle or if it was a brand new vehicle. Expeditions themselves are very good vehicles, just like Tahoes, just like GMC Denalis. They've always been great vehicles, but Ford definitely dropped the ball with waiting so long to refresh it. All that's changed now. The 18s are out, beautifully designed vehicles. You know, looks are subjective, but I really think that they hit the nail on the head with this specific design because it kind of gives you that larger Range Rover look. I would honestly say the Ford Explorer is kind of a copy of a Range Rover in its basic body design, but if you need something bigger and you want something with a larger Range Rover look, you have it here with LED headlights, LED accent lights, LED fog lights, 22-inch wheels. This thing is really that next step for Ford. So let's take a closer look at some of the other details on the outside. So one big difference that you get now as an option with the new Expedition versus the old one is you have 360-degree cameras. So you have cameras all around this vehicle, including the front. Once we get inside and we start looking at the interior, we'll show you the camera system and how it works, as well as the benefits of having a 360-degree camera, especially in a large SUV like this when you're trying to negotiate tight parking areas. Wasn't even an option in the previous edition. The only camera you could get on this vehicle was the rear backup camera. That was it. Another big one is the sunroofs. Now, I've told you on trucks, I'm not a big fan of sunroofs. I don't even care for the sunroof that's on my Super Duty, and if I had the option, I would have opted to not have a sunroof. On SUVs, it's a different story. When you go to an SUV this large, you're generally doing it because you have a large family. And when you have a larger family and you know you're going to have kids in the back, having a sunroof is actually a pretty magical experience to young kids. So this particular truck can come equipped with the twin panel sunroof. It's the same option you can get on the Super Duty and the F-150. If you haven't seen it, we'll show it to you in a second. It's a massive sunroof, pretty much spans from the front of the driver's head all the way to back behind where your passengers would sit in the back. On the 17 model, single pane sunroof, normal sunroof that you've been able to get on this thing for the past 17 years. Not that it's a bad thing, but they've definitely raised the bar by giving you that much larger sunroof option in the 2018. So that's a big difference. Wasn't available here, is now available here. So when you opt to these higher packages, you're generally going to see the larger wheels. 22-inch wheels come standard on the Limited and Platinum models, whereas 20-inch wheels, and I think they go all the way down to 18-inch wheels on the XLT package. 20-inch wheels on this specific King Ranch. One thing that's been retained is the use of these amp power deploying running boards, as you can see, and comes on the King Ranch as well. That's nothing new. Ford's been putting these on trucks for a while. I believe they started with the Platinum Edition F-150 back in like 2013. The fact is, when you get them on the vehicle, it's only about a $1,500 upgrade, but you get it along with the factory warranty of the vehicle. So 3-year, 36,000 mile bumper to bumper, 5-year, 60,000 mile powertrain, but these are going to be covered under your factory warranty, which is a huge perk. When you buy the steps from a shop and have them put them on, you generally get a 1-year warranty with them. So this is the key fob to the 2017 Expedition, which is actually the exact same key fob you get on the Lincoln Navigator. But what I want to show you here is the difference in how they operate with the door. So on this specific 2017 model, when you get this key fob, of course, without the key, you walk up to the vehicle, you can press it to lock the vehicle from the key fob or unlock it. So the way you work this is when you walk up to a vehicle, you press this with the key fob being close to it, you press the last button, it will unlock the vehicle. And then when you want to lock the vehicle, you just press these 2 last buttons and it locks the vehicle. But you don't have the ability to simply come up and touch the handle to unlock it. Now let's take a look at the 2018. So exactly the same key fob you're going to get with the F-150, the Super Duty, and a lot of the new Ford vehicles. It's this very large key fob. That's my only complaint about it, and the fact that these buttons are kind of easy to press when they're in your pocket. Actually happened to me last night, scared the crap out of me when the alarm started going off. But you simply throw this key fob in your pocket, walk up to the vehicle, touch the inside of the door handle, and the truck will unlock. So to lock this vehicle, you simply press this little picture of a lock right here on the top of the handle, which you might not be able to see, but watch what happens when you lock it. The mirrors automatically fold in. That's really cool. On my Super Duty, I have to fold them in with a button. On the F-150, it's the same way. On the Expedition, they realize that it's a fairly wide vehicle, and you may be in a situation where you just want to get out, press a button, everything locks up, and the mirrors fold in. So that's really cool. Another feature, because you may not be seeing it here, that Ford has retained is the use of the keypad on the side. It's integrated into this pillar here, so it's very difficult to see until you press a button. Then when you press a button, it lights up and you can see the buttons. So you still have the ability to access the vehicle using the keypad on the side if you'd like. So the tailgate on the 18 raises much faster than the 17. That may not be that big of a deal to some people, but it's kind of cool. They've changed the entire system of how it raises up. As you see, the shocks and the motors are right here versus the previous model where it used traditional shocks to hold up the back and then one motor right there on the side. I don't know if you can see it. Let me walk up. Right here with the traditional shocks up top. Interior space, let's see here. I'm not going to get into cubic feet because I know you can look up all that information. That's really easy to look up. But from a practical perspective, if you are a parent and you have, let's say, a baby stroller, or you have bags of groceries, or you have something you pick up and you need your third row up, you have about from here to here about 15 inches. At the top, you have maybe 6 inches. So anything you put in here, the bulk of it's going to have to be on the lower portion of the back of the SUV. As it gets taller, it's definitely going to limit the amount of room you have. Now, what a lot of people don't take into consideration is that the glass is also inset into the back. So that gives you a little bit more room than you might think. The problem is once you put something in here, stability-wise, once you pop the back, is it going to come tumbling out? However, you do have a pretty good amount of room back here considering the third row is up, and you could definitely make a trip to the grocery store or to the store to pick up some stuff and put it back here. As far as strollers, you'd have to have a pretty compact stroller to fit back here, and you'd probably even need to tie it off to something like that to keep it from tumbling out when you open up the back. So on the 18 model, it has a little bit more room. It looks like it's probably closer to 20 inches between here and here, so it's definitely a little bit deeper. It's got a little bit of a taper though, kind of leaning back, and that's kind of interesting to me. As far as the upper portion here, because you now have the ability to either recline or put the seats in a more upright position, it gives you quite a bit more space up here. So the space from where my hand is, which is about as far back as you'd want to put an item, to the back of the seat is closer to 10 to maybe 12 inches. It's a much greater space. Now, if you go to this seat, which is more reclined back, of course, you lose about 2 inches of space. That being said, you do have more space back here, and it's pretty easy to see the minute you take a look at it. One of the things that Ford's retained across both these lines is that you can still pop open the back glass. So when you raise the back glass, if you have something you can simply set into the back, you don't really have to worry about it tumbling out, which we'll demonstrate right now. So a question that I asked Eric was, can you program the height of the tailgate lid so it doesn't go up that high? Mainly because for shorter people or people who may not be able to reach that high, you don't want this to be a challenge to close the tailgate. And he said there is, and he's going to demonstrate that process right now. So what do you do, Eric?
So you literally just put your hand on the handle, bring it down to wherever you want to set it, and you'll hold the lift gate button here. Just hold it down, and then it'll set.
So once you open the tailgate now, it's going to stop at that predefined position. See, so that's great, especially if you are a little shorter in stature and you still need to be able to press this button. And another thing I noticed too is when you're pressing it, if you press it again, it'll stop. And that's kind of a cool feature as well. So you have two buttons here. You have one that's under here to actually pop the tailgate, and then you have one that's right here next to the camera to pop this back glass. So this goes up, and if you have groceries and things like that, or whatever you need to put in the back, you can then set it over this area. And again, once you've moved both seats up and you don't have them in a reclined position, you can see just how much more space you have in this vehicle. And then you can see the space that you have in the back of this specific vehicle. So taking a look at the back of both trucks, you'll see a huge difference here. All LED lights back here. LED brake lights, LED turn signals, LED reverse lights, all of them. That was something that was never an option on the previous Expedition. All incandescent lights, incandescent turn signals, incandescent reverse lights, brake lights, everything's incandescent. And that, again, makes a huge difference on just the desirability of owning one of these vehicles. You want to own one, you want it to have a lot of the new luxury features available. Now, a lot of people are going to say the prices are getting ridiculously high. They are getting higher, but they're not so much so that it doesn't make sense. For instance, a lot of folks own 2017 and before King Ranch, Platinums, XLT model Expeditions. This specific vehicle probably carried a $67,000 price tag on it. This one right here is about $75,000. So when you look at the difference between the two SUVs, it's gonna be significant. However, the technology you get for the price in this vehicle is going to command a higher price tag. So with any of these new SUVs, you have to just expect that with all the new tech they're now rolling into it, all the new convenience features, all the new features in general, the cameras, the interior, all of that stuff does cost more. And there's no way you could take a vehicle like this, add $5,000 to $10,000 to it, and have all the technology you're going to get in this vehicle. So I just wanted to point that out because vehicles are getting very expensive and you want to know what you're getting for that cost difference. So the next thing I want to point out is horsepower and torque. A lot of people are going to say there's absolutely no way I'll drive a V6 or a V6 twin turbo or any of that, or people will make the claim that the EcoBoost engine is pure junk, which I think has been disproven quite a bit. The argument can be made that the earlier versions of the EcoBoost weren't as reliable as they are now. However, this thing is pushing 375 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. Guys, let me repeat that. 375 horsepower, 470 pound-feet of torque with the same warranty that you would have gotten whenever they had the V8s in these things. The fact is, these EcoBoost engines are tremendously powerful. So the 2017 also has an EcoBoost engine, and the numbers were a little bit less. I think it was 365 and 420 pound-feet of torque. So it's a significant improvement in performance with the new 2018 over the 2017, and that's something worth noting simply because you get a lot of power out of these. Most people aren't necessarily going to care for the engine note when it comes to an SUV like this. I can understand if you're driving an F-150 or if you're driving a Super Duty and you really care about how the engine sounds. On a luxury SUV like this, you're really looking for something that's quiet, non-invasive, non-intrusive, and something that doesn't resonate heavily into the cab simply because you want that quieter note on the inside of the vehicle. These are luxury SUVs, guys. These aren't designed to be, lifted, jacked up, huge tires, wheels, even though some people do that.